now please welcome Reverend Heather Dawn Clark.
Thank you, Gino. That was just exceptional as usual. You just bring so much energy. And it's so grateful to see you here and to feel your energy. We're going to begin this morning's service with a prayer wall, but I want to explain a little things first. First of all, we're going to take 5 minutes only, and we're going to be timed. Secondly, Harry, since you're not a practitioner yet, would you please be the traffic director and make sure people aren't waiting in line but are getting to the next practitioner? And for the rest of us, those of you who do not want to have prayer, take this as a holy, sacred time. Don't take it as time to catch up on your emails, but rather be part of the consciousness of prayer, of sacredness, of having everyone receive the good that they desire. So we start with that awareness. There's only one presence. That presence is God and is forever saying, yes, my beloved. Yes, my beloved. So practitioners, ministers, please come and take your spaces, and it starts now, Mary. What can I pray for you? Thank you, practitioners. Thank you, ministers. That was our signal. And so here's what I know. I know that aging is a spiritual practice. I was really resistant to this. I kept thinking, what am I going to do? Do what I say, not what I do? No, you do it. You just don't do all of it, because I'm very self-critical up until now. Up until now, aging as a spiritual practice. I talked to a couple of people who said, what a great topic. And this is a topic for all ages. This is not just a topic for the 70, 80 somethings. This is a topic for the 20 somethings, for the millennials, that aging is a spiritual practice. And to start looking at life as something that's filled with possibilities, and not to be limited by your past, not to be limited by your parents' past or your grandparents' past, or whatever it is that you have up until now said yes to. Our spiritual leader, Ken Gordon, said, and I vaguely remember this, about 10 years ago, there was a report on aging, and the person that was doing the report said, it will be normal for us in the next 20 years to have a life expectancy of 130. And if we think with quality of life, Genevieve, not with pain, not with aches, but with freedom, quality of life. Quality of life. How does that happen? How does that happen? Quality of life at 130. And then in my imagination, you just go when you want to. Time's up. It's not like somebody or something else decides. It's like, okay, I've had a nice full life. I've done everything I wanted to. I haven't discovered myself. I have created myself. I have spoken my intention for myself, and it has been what has been my experience. That is the science of mind. That is what we teach. And yet, here's what I notice. And first of all, you all, I'm preaching to the choir, because some of our older people in here are already practicing these practices consciously. They're physically fit, fitter than they were at 20. They have better eyesight. One of you, and this person isn't here today, otherwise I would have asked him to talk about it. But when we were out together once, not on a date, but in a social thing, and he was actually reading something. He was reading a novel, fine print, no glasses. And someone else said that, well, did you have LASIK surgery or something? How are you able to do this? And he said, no, I decided in my 30s that I was never going to have those reading glasses. I was going to have great eyesight for the rest of my life. He's now above 70s. He's now above 70s, and he does not use reading glasses. He doesn't need them. He reads his novels without glasses. And they're not extra large print. So what he did was have a different idea. He had an idea of what he wanted to create. And I believe that that is what we're asked to do. If we can't model this, who can? If we can't model that every single age has its advantages. I was talking to one of our over 70 people, said, you know, the great thing about life is I've lived long enough now that I know what I want. I know who I am. I have great friends and friendships, and they're very meaningful to me, and life is good. The person who wrote this, this message today is Dr. Deborah Gordon, Ken Gordon's wife, and she is one of those people, as well as some of you are, who has kept her exact size from the time she was 18. And she's kept most of her clothes. So evidently her house is pretty full of clothes, because I know she's off. Whenever I see her, she's dressed to the nines and in very beautiful clothes that aren't 25 or 40 years old, but she could have. She has a choice. They all fit her because she decided. And she is not starving herself to get death. Here, that's the other thing, that what we know when we're practicing longevity practices, we're eating healthfully, nutritiously. We're moving our bodies because our bodies want to be moved. They want to feel great. And we're exercising our minds, because there is absolutely no reason for a person's cognitive ability to diminish because of age. Even though in our culture, there are all sorts of jokes. There are all sorts of jokes. There are all sorts of stories. And I'm tempted to tell one, but I won't. But sorts of stories about the normalcy of dementia after a certain age. It is not normal. It is not normal. What is normal is to have the same clarity of thought that you had at 15 or at 20 or at 40, to have it at 70, 80, 90. But we have to change our minds. See, here's the thing, that our culture is so youth-oriented that we are encouraged to look a certain way. And that's great, but that's not the whole story. The whole story is about being vital and whole and complete at every age, at every age. As many of you know, my dad, who passed away the year I moved to the United States in 1993, and he had Alzheimer's, and every single visit to visit my dad was harder than the one before, because every time he'd forget a little bit more. And I want to tell you two things. First of all, I believe that even though it became difficult for him to communicate, he still had an awareness of what he wanted, who he was. It became very, very frustrating for him. And then that frustration looked like anger and lack of ability to communicate. Father's Day of way back, when he was just starting to show symptoms but hadn't yet been diagnosed, I wrote him a letter about how much I appreciated him and the many things that he had given to me as my dad, and the many things I looked up to in him, and how hard it was for us, his children, to see him struggling with age, because it was really obvious. And when I called later that afternoon, because they always wintered in Mesa, Arizona. So when I called, my mom made him get on the phone, and it took him about 25 minutes to tell me how much he appreciated that note. But it was worth it to me and to him to give him the time that he needed so that he could have the words and he could say, this is what I appreciated about receiving this letter from you. When my mom passed away, she of course had kept those special things, and I took that letter home. So now it belongs to me, where it originated from, and I really appreciate that. But because of that, and even though I teach this every single Sunday and all during the week, and I try to practice my best, that's the one fear that race consciousness has hold of in me. What if? What will I be able to do if I can't remember? If I don't have the words? If the words don't come? Will I be a failure? Will I have to stop what I love doing? So I've done research, and my one medical doctor said, oh, I would never want to know. I thought, why am I going to this doctor? Because of course I'd want to know. Of course I would want to know what the medical diagnosis is, which does not have to be the prognosis. It's just their opinion. It's just their opinion. Anyway, the medical diagnosis was just fine. It's possible 20 years from now that you could have some memory loss, was the diagnosis. Well, I can live with that. But meanwhile, I've been doing some of those longevity things. There is so much out there, folks, for us to do to keep our minds sharp. There's so many things. And most of my practices for that aspect are all online. You can sign up. Some of them are free, some of them aren't, but is it worth it if it helps you sharpen your skills? Is it worth it if you can remember better, if you have a better grasp of your cognition? It's like any other muscle. It needs to be used. I'm not calling you a fathead. It's just something that needs to be practiced and used. So this is the part where I don't practice. There are those of you that do some activity, not just weekly, but every day, some sort of physical activity every day. And that's a longevity practice. There are those of you that are, one of you, when she first retired, said, I'm so busy now, I haven't any time to do anything else, because she took up golf and tennis and was in all of these leagues and was so physically busy. But does she look like she is fit and healthy and happy? Absolutely, she does. And everything I read says, and you don't have to start with tennis or golf or something. You don't have to start with running. Start where you are. Take a walk around your building. Start where you are and get into the habit of that movement. It is up to you. So here's the thing. Ernest Holmes says life is a mirror. It's always reflecting back to us whatever it is that we think ourselves to be. So maybe this is the day for you to take a really good long look at those deep beliefs about aging, about those deep beliefs about what's in your family history. The first thing the medical doctor asks you, or me anyway, is what's the family history? Meaning, are you going to be subject to diabetes? Are you going to be subject to heart disease? Are you going to be subject to stroke or any of those things? It doesn't matter what your family pattern is. Tell the doctor for certain, and then remember that your real parent is spiritual and perfect. Your real parent has never had any issues, because that's the presence of God in you that is whole, complete, and perfect right now, and continues to be. I look at our choir, and I think there's a really good example of the intergenerational practice of singing. And every time you learn a new song, you're practicing longevity. Every time you memorize new lyrics, you're practicing longevity. And by the way, folks, it's not just people. I read this fascinating article last night about an albatross. And this particular albatross had been banded 62 years ago. 62 years ago. Now, they're only supposed to have a life expectancy of 10 to 20 years, maybe 40, 62 years ago, and she is still having chicks. So I think a longevity practice, fill in the blanks. But here's the thing I didn't know about albatross. They summer in the Arctic and they winter in Hawaii. So they have that long flight every year, 62 years at least. And when they mate, both the male and the female look after that chick for at least a year. Isn't that an interesting thing? So another longevity practice seems to me to be connecting. Making sure that you have friends, family, a loved one to assist you in whatever it is you're doing, going through, being. Because if it's true for the albatross, it has to be even more true for us as human beings. And even especially true for those of us who know we're spiritual beings first and foremost. And what we're really attracted to in the other isn't anything on the visible. In fact, even though you're gagaing over the six-pack and the hair and all the beautiful things, it's not that at all. It's the inner essence. It's the spiritual truth about the other that is the most attractive. It's non-visible. Okay, so the whole month of March has been about expanding our horizons through education. What better way to educate ourselves and to practice these things than to remember aging is a spiritual practice? And when someone tells you they're 70 or 75 or 80, not to jump to the conclusion that they're going downhill from here, but rather to jump to the conclusion that there must be wonderful things in their life that they're experiencing. I look at you and I know you. I know that those of you who come and are over a certain age, it's because you're engaged. You're in that arena. You are participating in life. And well, you should. It's your life. It's the only one you've got this time round. And who knows where the next one will be. We don't know that. We just know this. This is what we know for sure. Sometimes when I don't get enough sleep, and of course there's another longevity practice, getting plenty of sleep, plenty of fresh air, etc. I make excuses about why I don't have energy or why I'm cranky. And there's no reason for an excuse. There's no reason for an excuse. Do the best you can with what you can. So if you didn't get a full 6 hours, 8 hours, or 10 hours of sleep last night, so what? Get more next time. Hopefully tonight. Okay. One of the things that I recently experienced was, you know how loud our fire alarm is here? I've got a louder one in my house. And last night it went off 3 times. Once after I'd been asleep for 1 hour, once after I'd been asleep for another 2 hours, and once just before my alarm was going to ring. And I thought, now what is this? Because I'm a kind of metaphysician that never thinks a cigar is just a cigar. I'm the kind of metaphysician that always thinks that there's a meaning for everything in my life. So I was thinking about that and thinking, well, given this talk this morning, what is it that it could possibly mean? And I think it means this, that oftentimes I'm making welcome signals that are fear-based. And there was no fire, there was no carbon dioxide, there was no danger. But boy, it sounded like there was danger, but there was no danger. So maybe you're the same. And that was one of Brené Brown's main points, is that we're taught to live a fear-based life. What am I afraid of today, and whose fault is it? There's no thing to be afraid of. There's no thing that can take your power, your energy, your truth, and your infinite possibilities. It's your life, created the way you want, and so it is. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We're not going to pray again because we all prayed and you all participated by holding that consciousness, and thank you so much. You did it so well. So